Boy, I heard you were a wild one. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm hoping to get through this record tonight, people. Managed to find a little moment. Got a cup, well, so I've got a cup of coffee waiting for me. I've got a kettle that has been switched on. So, perk up for you lot in a bit. It's not as late as what I can record at, but I've been on my feet all day. Been doing my thing. Grinding and unwinding. And doing the best of my capabilities. Give a shout out to the Metal Maestro, people. Round of applause. Round of applause. Skill bonus on that round of applause. Metal Maestro is abiding by the title. Flipping Carcass. Flipping Carcass. Anybody who's into Carcass is a Metal Maestro. Now we're moving on. Swan Song. It's been a moment since we listened to the last Carcass record. I think it was Heartwork what we listened to last, and I'll be real with you. I can't remember my exact experience, but as far as I'm concerned in this day and age, it didn't fare to my experience with the earlier death metal adjacent records. Let me just get the discography up now. Hold on. See what I go on. Because obviously we started off with the Gore Grind record, yeah, groundbreaking, but it's a bit of a novelty, you know. If anybody tells you, like, oh yeah man, I just love that first Carcass record, whatever, it's like people saying, oh yeah, I love Scum. Do you know what I mean? Boring. As far as I'm concerned, Napalm Death is boring all the way around. All the way around. I've not come across many. Doom are better than Napalm Death. Anyway, we're starting off with some bold statements. Let's be real. Carcass discography. And you know what? I am gonna give myself reservations to take that statement back as far as Napalm Death are concerned. On this channel, we'll listen to Scum, we'll listen to Harmony, Corruption. And in my time external, I've heard a couple of numbers here and there. But I've never come across anything that is beyond bog standard crusty punk, like very bog standard stuff. So we listened to Heartwork last. Of course, Recaputrefaction is what I was referencing as far as the Gore Grind stuff. Then we listened to Necroticism. I think that was my favourite one as of so far. And is that really all we've listened to? Right, yeah, Necroticism, the second album, was my favourite so far. But we're probably going to err a little bit more so into this odd space transcending from Heartwork. Let's find out what we've got. Keep on rotting in the free world. Keep on rotting in it. I'll make myself a bit smaller so you can see the imagery. I actually saw an interview with these dudes not so long back, because I'm pretty naive when it comes to death metal as a whole and the counterparts of death metal and the people behind death metal adjacent music. But it said Carcass, at least in the Recaputrefaction record, they were coming up with all of them super extended overt terminological names and titles via delving into medical books, which is quite funny because when you look into Gore Grind, they all sort of kind of do that thing. And even in death metal now, there's a lot of death metal bands that do the whole overt title thing, and I'm not a fan of it personally. I think it comes across as very pseudo-intellectual a lot of the time, but there you go. Carcass was the one who essentially defined it.
The role of the Western free world, yes, it
Bit of Maiden there on that harmony. Here we go, my guys ranking them all 10 out of 10.
Consumer or consumed, your life is cheap. Economic salvation and switch ups returned from the east. Despair your equality, your strife.
Lunatic, I always have to bring this up when it's referenced. Someone says, very interesting. If you pay attention to the lyrics, this tune is absolutely far more relevant and apparent now in 2022 than any time this album was released. Points towards genius intuition in the songwriting. My criticism of that is it's definitely not genius. Quite simply, if you were to write a politicized criticism of the system as it is now, no doubt nothing will have changed in the decades to the millennia to come. It just works in cycles as the noose continues to wrap around the neck of the subjects, you know? So what you need to do is you need to look into Buddhism, Buddhist philosophy, and detach from the material, detach from the fiat finance structure, and definitely do what I'm not doing. That's the only way to fight back. Get yourself to the monastery. Anyway, I've not been talking so much about the tune. I'm fascinated to see how much of the record is going to sound like this. It's riffing. It's heavy metal. It's a sound, some are going to consider this blasphemy. It's a sound like the very limited amount of music I've heard from Satyricon back in the day. Like that sort of gruff, half pronunciated, half growled death vocal, nothing too intense. And we've got this gritty grey sort of rock essence to it, you know? It's not music for the pit. What was this put out? 93? That was Heartwork, wasn't it? 93. Come on. Death and roll, somebody calls it. They've even thrown a little shaker in there. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. I'll just re-clarify what it won't mean anything to you, but I had a little bit of a ramble at the end of that tune, and it turns out my microphone stopped recording, but that was an interesting sound. I think the production works very well. We listen to a fair amount of metal on the channel, and we hear a few riffs from time to time. But those dudes, they were riffing on that track. Great guitar work, professional guitar work. And it came with a maturity that we don't hear too often. I don't know. People in the comments talk about death and roll, so I suppose that's a style I'm completely oblivious to. Not only that, maybe I like the whole gore grind thing. Carcass will want to kick it into existence. Maybe they were ahead of the curve once again. But that was great. The riffage was great. Maiden harmonies, nice tempo, vocals, not necessarily the strongest in relation to my personal tastes, because that whole that particular style is something I'm not going to comment on anytime too soon. I don't dislike it, but we're going to not cast too heavy a judgment until we go into track number 2, because we're going to see where we go from here. Tomorrow Belongs to Nobody coming up.